Hi, it's Collette from the Sacred Rose Temple, and I'm here to give you this week's energy report. To be honest, it doesn't feel like the week's gone by since I gave you the last energy report. It feels like about 3 months. And that's because we've just gone through a really crazy, intense week of, movement and changes. The planets are acting quite intensely in order to bring us much needed and wanted growth in the collective as well on a personal level. But this week, I've really kind of been sitting and feeling into what this means now that the retrograde ended yesterday. So, we all know that Mercury retrograde has been happening over the last few weeks, and we are actually still sitting in its post shadow, which happens for about 3 weeks. So we're still kind of exiting from that. And we always know that in a Mercury retrograde, we really shouldn't be doing anything that is securing deals or tying in contracts because they usually go quite array. So it's now the time that we can be thinking, okay, so I'm going to get that new course, thinking about getting that new course out, or I'm going to apply for that job. This would be a great time to do it. But because Mars is in retrograde, we're now being asked to just do that a little bit more slowly. And I think that's the key for this week, slow and steady. Really just take your time with the energy. It's going to be much slower. It's going to feel like it's working at a snail's pace. But we we need to align to that. Something very difficult for me. But I'm really feeling that that's to do with the time of year it is as well. If we're on this side of the hemisphere, we're dealing with the winter. And I shared this in my last report about like the sacred pause, the silence. And then, of course, we've got the up and coming winter solstice. And I will be, doing a podcast on that, a teaching actually that takes us really into what that means for us within the human psyche, within the deep collective myth of the light coming back. And we should be kind of looking forward to that light in the dark. When we're not at the light, we're not trying to grasp the light because it's not there yet. But we're slowly seeing it, and we need to still sit in that alchemical place of the darkness. So we've had a lot of illusions shattered. A lot of our shadows have come up. A lot of things that we need to heal that are still kind of wreaking chaos in our lives. And then we're going to be coming into a new energy that's asking us like, what do we want? What are we what are we wanting to build in our lives? What is the future for you? What does that look like? What do you want? And truth needs to really come into this and to be truthful to yourself. Many people find it very, very difficult to be truthful to themselves because truth often shakes our foundation. Truth often makes us step up. It makes us change things that we're just so comfortable and lying in and scared because we've got to make some changes or, come out of our comfort zone. So truth is really about that. It's about rocking our foundations a little. I had a conversation with somebody that asked me about setting boundaries, and I said, truth sets boundaries. And what happens is when truth is spoken and boundaries are set by truth, that the other will often kick off or pose that, or the ego will flare up in the other. And you have to be okay with that. You have to not be moved by the ego rattling or the opposition to you, but just to be very still and standing in the sovereignty of your truth, in your strength, in your polar, in your center, being in your center, delivering your truth, what you want, what you feel, what your boundaries are, what your expectations are, what all of it. If you stand in that, what isn't aligned with you and your truth will begin to dissolve. And that's really important. What's your truth? How do I vocalize that? And how do I not be disturbed or unbalanced if that truth is opposed and rattles another? And that will clear up some mess for you. It's also happening in our collective. I don't know whether you all are aware with, I don't have a TV, so I'm not deeply connected to the media, but I mooch in and nose in. And I shared this somewhat 10 years ago that this would all come into a big revelation about the media, about our very dark worshipping of celebrities and those in the music industry that are now being shown to be quite dark. I shared this many years ago that that whole industry is all based on huge amounts of energy harvesting off us, that we kind of, hero worship these celebrities rather than the divine, rather than God, rather than the sacred, rather than nature. And they harvest all of that energy and they're really not for the people. And that's not just celebrities, that's with regards to health structures, to governments, to people in politics, anywhere where we project our own inner sovereign one, special one, holy one, sacred one, powerful one, we're always projecting that outside of ourselves onto another. And when we do that, we start to see whatever is receiving all the projection, harvesting quite a lot of energy. And there's always a downfall to that. And there was something happened this week I shared with someone who'd shared a video and I said, it's just feel it, like feel that harvesting of all those energies. And this happens in the sacred world that we kind of want to harvest huge audiences. And look what happens. It always goes away. And that, for me, in my own spiritual work, is not an intention. I do not want to harvest huge amounts of energy. I want to really work with dedicated, smaller groups to make powerful transitions. I don't want to be the vessel of somebody's projections that are a really weighty load to carry. And I'm very aware and try to be as conscious as I can through my own therapeutic work with my analyst that I am deflecting all of those projections and allowing my clients and the people around me to see their own worth in themselves, their own power, their own holiness, sacredness, whatever it is they want to back my way because they're not ready to own it yet. And I think that's really important where we're giving power away to another. It's really important to pull that back. And we've seen that over the last weeks with the energy reports with regards to male and female energy, to the relationships that you're in with friends, parents, lovers, whoever it is, just to be very careful of the power dynamics, the projections, and where we're transferring our own inner workings on another. And that really leads me to come into, we still got the Venus opposing Mars. So the celestial standoff here is going to be still showing us power dynamics between male and female. And don't forget that we in a female body or a male body, we have both. So it's about integration of this feminine and masculine within, and again, seeing where we project that out, where we don't own it within, where we blame the other. That's been going on for the beginning of time, hasn't it? Where we're projecting and blaming the other. So it's time to pull it all back in. And that also feeds into, Saturn stationing direct in Pisces, and that it is all about our spiritual responsibility. What is our spiritual responsibility? If you're a teacher out there, are you harvesting the energy of others? Are you pulling it, back to people to be their own leader, to be their own sacredness, to be their own institution and structure? And I think we all need to look at that in our own self. Like, what is my spiritual responsibility? Am I deflecting that and placing it on my teacher that she'll change the world, that he'll change the world? Or do I understand that I have a small piece to change and that I hold power and that I hold love and that I hold things that I am kind of hero worshipping for? What's my personal responsibility? And those of us that are in the teaching, we have to answer that. What's my personal responsibility? What shadows have I still need to work on within that? And what parts of me are powerful and can lead people through their spiritual responsibility? So I think it's all really fused with the new moon that we've just had in Sagittarius that's trying to get us to set intentions, be optimistic about what's coming, and know that we're all heading to a much soul-led existence. and I think this is really interesting, we are collectively being radically transformed to try to leave a more soul-led existence, one that is rooted in the soul's journey rather than the mind, rather than power, all of that. So ask yourself, where is the soul leading you? I think it's really obvious as well that the soul path for us is not a straightforward answer. We just don't get to say, oh, this is my soul path. It's intricately fed to us through following the breadcrumbs through the woods, like Hansel and Gretel, really picking up the divine clues and the pieces on a path that's unknown. That's where we will be led to our soul. It is the unknown, it's not the known. And follow that unknowing, follow that space that is, I've got to pick up the pieces on this journey to find out where it is I'm going. It's not just given. And that will help you navigate your soul path. What's also really been coming up heavily is for me, and it's been signposted in those breadcrumbs that I just shared. This is how I kind of come to these energy supports, is the archetype of the trickster. And in my Jungian studies, the archetypes play a really symbolic role in our collective and in our own individual energies. So Jupiter in Gemini is bringing about, I believe, this trickster archetype. It's an archetype that stirs up unpredictability and humor. The trickster will really challenge rigid thinking and invite you to see life's paradoxes. The trickster, if you ever cross a trickster, will give you an opportunity to break free from societal norms and personal expectations by embracing curiosity, the unknown path that I speak of on the soul path, being adaptable on it, picking up the clues and seeing that as an exciting challenge and bringing humor to it all. So the trickster is in duality like all archetypes, and in its shadow archetype, the trickster can lead you off path. The trickster can be really cunning and have a dual face. He or she is portraying to be one thing while hiding the other. This has been a huge part of something I've been going through personally over the last months. This trickster energy also might come in the guise of the magician. So, how is this trickster archetype revealing itself in the collective energy for you? It might be in a person, might be in a situation, might be within your own self. What's your trickster archetype? Is there someone in you that is curious, adaptable, humor in the journey, challenging rigid thinking, challenging your own beliefs? And that trickster will really ask you to play with life's dualities instead of resisting them. So knowing that with suffering comes joy, not just running for joy, not just sitting in suffering, that there is known parts of the path as well as the unknown. Do you embrace them both? And that there are two faces to everything. I was sharing this again with somebody that was asking me about boundaries and about, speaking truth. The trickster is an energy that has to be shared truth with. The third in the trickster, the shadow and the light, comes through that, third part of truth. What's the truth here? Can you use your intuition? Can you drop into your gut feelings? This isn't a time of clarity, just to make that clear to you all. And the trickster is somebody that doesn't make things clear at all. The trickster will really head wreck you, make everything really confusing, never be straight, never be open, never be honest, never revealing feelings, never holding truth. That's typical trickster energy. So this time, especially this week, I feel is really important about making clear what you can, knowing that you're not going to be clear about it all, that clarity doesn't come in this energy, but what it's trying to flex in you is intuitive skills, really having those gut feelings, having the ability to speak truth. So there's a lot there, as there always is in my energy, reports. And I think my message is mostly the same in that be in your center and connect to nature. Do your practices that make you really anchored in your self sovereignty and approach all these dilemmas and all these tests and all this beautiful transformative energy and tips I give you from that place. If you trust yourself, if you go inward, if you find the center, you'll be able to navigate all this well. And if you make mistakes, you'll learn from them. So it's to release the fear here and to come into the lessons, even if you've been messing with a trickster archetype, to release the fear of that and to honor the lessons that the trickster reveals to us. We've been seeing that hugely in our collective over the last 3 years. Huge trickster energy in the politicians, in the health systems, in it all. Liars, two-faced, massive shadow, huge light. They all exist in the duality. The trickster is not just shadow, he's not just light either. So navigate this with that understanding that you are building muscle for your spiritual prowess. And I think that's how I would coin this week. I decided to just pull 3 cards out of my tarot deck. Druidry, we use the tarot deck, and I've used it before practicing Druidess, and just really feeling how they tap into what I love about Jungian psychology as well, and the archetypes. And it was no shock that I pulled the 3 cards: the Tower, the Star, and the Fool. Can you believe that? So the Tower reminds us that transformation often comes with upheaval. So let the old structures fall, knowing they're making space for the new. The Star is offering you hope and guidance amidst the chaos, and it's illuminating the way forward. Now, isn't that just beautiful with the oncoming solstice when the light begins to return? And then finally, the Fool. The Fool is aligned with the trickster energy, with the archetype of the trickster, and it's encouraging you to leap into the unknown with trust and to be aware of shadow and of light, to speak truth, to notice two-face, to notice duality, and stand in the middle of it in your own power, pulling back your energy, seeing how the trickster can bring you and shake you out of rigidity also. So I think the cards signify a week of spiritual recalibration, but also highlight the need for some playful exploration, because everything's been so blooming intense, hasn't it? So how do we, set some playful intentions that we can have, the vision for this coming week in all of that I've shared, and approach it in a much more playful way, and that would be up to you to sit with that. How would I navigate this in a more playful way? And what comes to mind here for me is the Wizard of Oz and Dorothy. When the curtain falls, the veils of illusions have all been revealed, and there is the trickster, the wizard behind the curtain, and Dorothy realizes that she wasn't aware of placing and projecting all her power onto this small little man behind the curtain, and really that the inner trickster was there in herself that led herself to believe that he was only good. And there, right in front of her, was the projection of her own shadow and her own massive wizard inside. So I'm going to leave that there and wish you all a really good week, playing with the trickster inside as well as outside, taking some time, slower pace to come into moments of clarity, but knowing that there's still quite a lot of confusion and chaos, which is the unknown, which is fine. The light is ahead of you and it's coming and you're seeking. So eventually there will be that beautiful divine moment, which I will teach for the winter solstice, and you will stand in a new place entirely. So enjoy this week. enjoy the play of the planets and this spiritual growth that's being shone down on you. So take care and bye for now.